everyone, what's up? I'm here, your buddy John, and with me is Tom, and we just like to talk about things that we find absolutely awesome. Now, Tom, there's been a lot of things going on recently with a topic that you and me have talked about literally for at least 2 decades now.
It's been one of our obsessions.
So what do you make of everything that's being let loose, the information that's being seeped out or dripped to us from Congress and from the Pentagon and shortly from NASA, now that they're officially saying they're involved in this? What do you think?
Well, it's pretty mind-blowing, actually, everything that you're coming across and sending to me. It's hard to believe that we're living in this time, like the time that we kind of always talked about.
Yeah, being believers is one thing, right? Being believers in this is one thing. As you were a believer in all this stuff long before you met me, and same thing with me. But to actually be here right now, where all the forces that were thrown against us, you and me were told for years that us believing that the government knows about UFOs, that they are concealing information from us. People have told us, John, Tom, you're crazy. NASA says it's not real. You got a friend in NASA even. NASA says it's not real, John. The Pentagon says it's not real, Tom. Everybody listen up. Nobody in the military says this is real. And now, within the last 2 years, all of those agencies, NASA, Pentagon, Congress, Naval Intelligence, Air Force Intelligence now, are all coming forward saying, yes, this is a real phenomenon. It's not swamp gas. It's not flocks of geese at night. It's not the planet Venus misidentified. We have multiple radars from multiple different sources, along with corroborating eyewitness and even things like weapon lock systems, are all confirming that these are real physical objects. It's not a misinterpretation. And did you ever think you could possibly live in this time?
No. Yeah, every time we talked about it, we thought it would never happen. It's
because even though we're believers in this, we try to be logical. And you're right. Logically, it never seemed like it would be a real possibility.
Well, they like to propagate sort of the shame behind UFOlogy, or that was like the one of the methods to sort of ridicule people who believed it, was to shame them about their interest in UFOlogy. And that would be sort of enough to like scare academics from talking about it.
And not just the academics, pilots, right? Everybody.
Yeah.
Pilots in both civilian and military wouldn't talk about this. Astronauts at the time wouldn't talk about this. Well, there's been a few over the decades, and I actually want to talk about that in another episode, because there are a handful of astronauts.
Even when we still were talking about it, like even way back in like the reports from like the 80s and 90s, military people have always been coming forward and talking about their story. And now it's just putting all those pieces together.
And an interesting point about that I think never gets any attention is, over these decades, whenever an individual from the military or a private contractor like Bob Lazar has come forward, and he was so attacked. Bob Lazar was they tried to erase his existence initially, but then his name came up in directories. His name came up in an IRS form, basically corroborating everything that he had said about where he was at the time. But these they make people believe that those people are crazy, that they can't be listened to. And now we're I forgot where I even started this this thought from, but where it's got to in this free form of mine is that they've been telling us that they're crazy. Don't listen to them. You're crazy for listening to them. It's just a dead end, everyone. It's a dead end. And the crime here is what you're talking about, is that the disinformation that has been purposely set up by the United States government, the United States military, and yeah, I'm even going to say NASA has been involved in a lot of this disinformation. And the amount of information we would have already at this point, if the last 70 years, intellectuals were allowed to examine the information, we would be in a far different place than we are right now. I feel like we're being drip fed.
Yeah. Also, I mean, does it even matter? The U.S. government, or even any government on the planet, can't stop aliens from revealing themselves to us, even if they tried. So I don't know. The secrecy is not coming from the government. If you look at it, the secrecy is coming from the UFOs themselves. They're not coming down and talking to anybody. There's definitely proof that they exist, but they haven't really shown themselves the way that they could. You know what I'm saying?
I do agree with most of that, but I'm going to disagree with. I don't think that this is like a mandate that's been coming down from the aliens to our leaders. Simply because if you look at 1960, in 1960, the United States government, or NASA in its beginning days, wanted to know what are going to be the ramifications if we discover alien life and reveal it to the public. The Brookings Report was done to answer the question, looking at however they looked at it through psychology and religion, or however it was they determined it. But it came back that if alien life is real and it's revealed to the public, I believe the actual word it used was it would disintegrate human society as we understand it. And that became, I believe, their reasoning to cover up after cover up after cover up. Because they were afraid that if everything was just dropped in our laps in 1945, 1946, 1947, if that was all dropped in our laps at that time, people would freak the F out.
Do you think that's the reason for the slow drip?
I think so. Because let me tell you something. I think they were right. Because already, now you and me have mentally prepared ourselves for this more than the average person has. Right? We've talked about this. We've had thought projects about this. Now, what I'm thinking is that this was all drip fed because this has happened before. Now, actually, let me go into a different direction than I wanted to go in, because this is just perfect timing for it. You're familiar with the Kardashev scale, right? Of civilizations in the universe. I bet you are, and you just maybe don't know the name of it possibly. So the Kardashev scale, named after the scientist that had the thought experiment about this, reasoned that there are different levels of civilizations in the universe. A type 1 civilization has technologically mastered the power to harness their planet. So they're in control of the weather system. They're in control of agriculture. They don't have any, it's like, oh, I wonder if it's going to be a good crop this year. No, it's always a good crop this year. They're in charge of that. They make sure these things happen. They're in total control of their planet in every way. A stage 2 is in complete control of their solar system. Maybe they have a Dyson sphere built around their sun or around their entire solar system to capture 100% and utilize 100% of solar energy. They can manipulate things on a grand scale that we can't even really imagine. And a type 3 is like that, but on a more universal scale. So this is what I'm thinking. Let me diverge for a moment. This is worth it. So not too long ago, I came across a story that a number of years back, a tribe was discovered in the Amazon, a Stone Age tribe, completely untouched by everything. So it was quickly determined we're going to leave them be, almost like Star Trek with the Prime Directive. They changed flight patterns. They cordoned off the area. Nobody at all was allowed to go in at first. And then they started letting in a few park rangers with scientists to study them from the distance, from like the top of the hills at a distance with magnifying glass, with binoculars and stuff.
Right.
So maybe some of these natives may see someone off in the distance, but that's it. They don't know who it is, what they're doing. Then eventually they got closer and closer and closer. It was a very slow, decades-long introduction to let them know that there's an outside world. People know of your existence, all of this. So now put that together with what I was just saying, and keep in mind, check this out, keep in mind where we are positioned in the Milky Way galaxy. Right, Tom, we're in a boondock on one of the arms.
Okay, I was going to ask that because I don't know where we are.
Yeah, so we're in a spiral galaxy, and where our solar system is often one of the boondocks, one of the arms, the far end of it. So now you think about a galactic evolution, right? The galaxies are born and they spread out, right? Like anything else, you got a center point the flash point. It would be in a fire, and then everything out from that flash point. So there has been evolution going on in our Milky Way galaxy for billions of years before the Earth or our solar system was even formed here. I think that a much older civilization, closer to galactic center where its origin would be, they rose to sci-fi prominence, technology, they got into space. They eventually became a Type 2 civilization, and now they're a Type 3. They have complete control not only of their planet, not of their solar system, but of their entire galaxy. We are that Amazon tribe of Stone Age people. They discovered us as they've discovered countless other Stone Age civilizations. They cordoned us off. They let us evolve to a certain point where now we are starting to get into space. Now we are at a point where we can discover them. We are seeing them. We are getting close to them physically. I think that's what's going on here. I think that's what it is.
Why do you think that they're doing this? What is their rationale? What is their benefit to protect this Amazonian tribe they found in space? Why do they even care?
Chaos. I think. I've been thinking about this for the past week or so. Actually, now going back to decades of me hearing and listening, and you probably just as many as you could as well. Stories, from In Search Of to sightings to every paranormal TV show that's been on TV, absorbing the stories that I hear from both regular civilians, nobodies, quote nobodies, as well as from military personnel and high-ranking individuals. And there's a few things that I've noticed that run through every single story I've ever heard. First of all, none of them talk. Whether you're discussing the Nordic aliens, the gray aliens, the other gray aliens with the tall ones, the insects, the reptilians, whatever you're talking about, it's always telepathic.
Mental, yeah.
Yeah. Now, I believe that one of them, who was known as Valiant Thor, who allegedly spoke with Congress at the time, he did speak verbally. But he learned to. Normally, they always, every other story, they're speaking telepathically. Tom, regardless of all the research, especially out of Duke University in the 1930s with their parapsychology department, we know for a fact that on certain levels, at certain degrees, telepathy, ESP, does exist in human beings. We speculate it exists in in animals, but they can't talk to us to verify that. So
Yeah, exactly.
we have nascent levels, baby levels, apparently, of telepathy, but we're not there yet, Tom. We're not at the point where we don't need to use this to communicate with each other anymore. Another thing I think about is in all the stories anyone sells, there are no hillbilly aliens. There are no gangbanger aliens. There are no hood rat aliens. Whether the aliens are cold and calculated or whether they're trying to help us, they're all scientifically minded. There's no chaos, Tom. There's no chaos. So I think that they shepherd planets like us to make sure that we are not allowed off of this rock if we are chaotic. They don't want new neighbors that are shooting their guns off in space and having a good time. Woo! They don't want intergalactic war. Because think about war at that level where you can manipulate whole galaxies. You don't go to war with anybody because you're going to be destroying whole freaking galaxies. Like, think of the first Hulk movie where he's fighting those tanks and fighter planes in the desert. He destroyed the desert. That's what would happen on a galactic scale. When you're at the level where you can manipulate gravity itself, you can literally throw planets at other planets. You can see death and destruction on a planet through genetic means, through diseases. Hollywood has it wrong since day one. There's never ever going to be an invasion in this planet, Tom. Never. Because they don't have to. If they want to wipe out humans, they'll drop a few diseases on us. Maybe they'll alter an asteroid to hit us. Enough of us survive that they can harvest or whatever the hell it is they want to do with us. But that's it. They're done. So they're not here for war, Tom.
Yeah.
They own this place in that sense. That's why they're shepherding us. That's why they're watching over us. Because they want us to be part of their cosmic cousins. They want us to be good neighbors. But they have the ability. That's it. Good neighbor. Think of this. You have something on your mind. Let me just say this and we'll jump to you. So here on Earth, Tom, well, at least here in America,
yeah,
you can't be denied moving into a new building because the owner says that he doesn't like you. You're not calm enough for him. You're not polite enough for him. Yo, that's a lawsuit here. That is a lawsuit in this country. It's not in space, okay? They own space. They own this whole galaxy, the whole Milky Way galaxy, I believe. And they say, no chaos. We don't want it. So I think that is why they've sort of been shepherding us the whole... Now, they're obviously doing a horrible job if you look around the news every damn day. We're still chaotic as all hell, but that's why they're keeping us here. There's no hood rats. There's no rednecks in space.
Well, what we've seen, we haven't seen every aspect.
No, probably not. But there's no story either of us have ever heard about someone getting abducted by aliens and then coming back with stories about the aliens acting like Crips or Bloods. They don't act like Jebediah's toothless Uncle Methuselah from Arkansas. None of them have these stories. So yeah, it's possible that there's aliens in space that are like this, but we have, in decades, we have never been told this. Not one person has come back and said it looked like an Alabama backyard after a tornado in that spaceship. But that's not the only thing. Think about this. And this is a huge, hard thing to say. There's no diversity among aliens. All the Nordic aliens, which are the only ones that we allegedly know of, are the only ones that allegedly look human. Okay, the Nordics are very tall, human-looking, Caucasian, blonde hair, blue-eyed aliens, which is why they're called the Nordics. They all look like different humans, but they all are what we would call Caucasian with blue eyes and blonde hair. There's no Spanish-looking Nordics. There's no anything looking Nordics except Caucasian with blonde hair and blue eyes. Now you look at the grays. There's allegedly there's two different species of grays. One of them are just the short little grays, and they all look like that. There's no blue grays. There's no green grays. There's no black grays or white grays. They're just grays. All uniform, no diversity. The other grays are the same, plus there's also some tall ones. But again, they all look identical. Their skin color is identical. There's no difference in their genetic look. Their eyes, their noses, their lips, everything looks identical and the same. All the reptilians look the same. All the insect ones look the same. Why are there no stories of diversity? Now, I'm not saying this as a checkbox point. I'm saying this is a very interesting point I've recently discovered. There's no stories that differ.
What do you think the reason for that is?
Well, I think thinking out of the box, since we're not alien, we don't have an alien mind, it'd be far too easy and too silly to start talking about like race problems here on Earth, and they had the same thing out in space, so only one race dominates a planet during evolution. I'm not sure about that. What I've been thinking is, what if all of these aliens that have been allegedly spotted, what if they're biological avatars, biological robots? What if consciousness is sent across space somehow? I don't know how, but then again, we don't have the technology to cross space. There's a lot of things we don't understand. But their consciousness is sent to these probes that have or generate biological robotic bodies for them. Maybe they look like their real bodies back home. Usually like attracts like. You tend to build things. If you're drawing something that has a human form, you tend to draw it kind of like yourself. Maybe that's why, because they just need like one model. The model of the alien that created the whole concept, maybe. But that's something that's never been discussed.
We have talked about that a little bit, like if the roles were reversed, our first sort of emissaries to a new planet would be robotic. So it makes sense to have it the other way around, too. What is the name of that calculation?
The Drake equation, I believe.
Astrophysicist, the Drake, yes. You know where I'm going. Didn't the Drake equation say that there should be many, many, many aliens out there? And I question why we haven't seen anybody. It's a little bit weird that we haven't seen anybody.
Yeah, the numbers have changed over the years as we've learned that there's higher number of stars and there's higher number of planets than originally thought when Drake first made the equation. I think nowadays, for the Milky Way galaxy alone, we're up to hundreds of thousands of technologically advanced spacefaring races, according to his very low-balling percentage guesses on each category as he goes up his scale. But the other thing you mentioned is, why can't we see them? That's known as the Fermi paradox. Fermi was another scientist. He heard about this and he said, okay, yeah, I agree with you. The numbers do say, you're right. You've crunched the math right. The numbers do say that whatever it is at the time, thousands, there should be a couple of thousand civilizations out there. But why haven't we seen them then? We haven't seen them from our earthbound cameras, and nowadays we haven't seen them, from our spacebound cameras. If there's so many, we should be seeing them zipping across the universe, but we don't. So there's a lot of theories for that. My theory, I think, would fall under the category of what's known as the zoo hypothesis, that we're being kept as a zoo or a farm. My theory is a version of that.
Do you think the farm theory goes is that life is rare in the universe?
No, I think we're about to find out, and I think NASA already knows, and this is part of the drip feeding for us. I believe that anywhere life is possible, if you have a rocky, wet world in the Goldilocks zone of a planet, you have the possibility there for life. It's not an if. It's not a low possibility if. It's a big, high possibility if. Especially if you start factoring in, does it have any protection from the solar radiation? Like you look at Proxima B, right now the James Webb telescope, space telescope has been rocking out a lot of strange information coming from Proxima B, which is our closest, only 4 light years away. It's our closest neighboring star. And the planet surrounding it is tidal locked, just like the moon is to us. It always has one side facing the sun, one side away. It's bombarded by radiation. Nothing can live on the sun side of the planet that we know of. Nothing, at least, that could advance past tiny little, particles of life. Nothing evolved complex-wise. However, on the dark side of the planet, they've been detecting artificial light. Their spectral analysis of the light coming from the dark side of Proxima B matches the same wavelengths as artificial light creates. That side is
okay, interesting,
and that's protected from the sun's radiation by the other half of the planet. So life, as far as we understand life, it could have evolved in that area around the planet, that band right where the light and the dark sort of meet. That would probably be, if life is anything like it evolved here with sensory organs similar to the we have, it would probably have developed around that spot there. And as it grew more intelligent, it would have realized it needs to go further into the dark, but being created in a almost crepusculars. The midday, the end of day or end of night animals that come out during dusk and twilight. If they were like crepuscular animals, then they would have needed some light. So as they evolved and moved into the dark side, they would have created electricity or whatever energy source they are using to create artificial light. We have also been detecting short radio bursts coming from Proxima B that we can't answer. We have no idea what it is.
Where is this now?
It's only 4 light years away from us.
Coming from Proxima B?
Yeah. And the next closest star to us after that is, I think, a little more than twice, maybe 3 times the distance from us that Proxima B is. So, I mean, the next nearest planet is out of question. Everything we're looking at right now is Proxima B, and it's given us some of the strangest information we've ever heard.
That's incredible.
Now, I've looked into this, and there's not a lot of stories I've seen about aliens apparently from Proxima B. We get a lot from Sirius, the dog star Sirius B. We get some from Orion's belt, allegedly some of the aliens that have visited Earth are from there. I only came across one story ever of alleged aliens from Proxima B. It's not something that people have talked about before.
But you have had one. You've had one story that you found. What was that story about?
Had a drawing attached to it showing a rather humanoid-looking figure. Torso, head, legs, arms, 2 of each, it looked like from the drawing. I couldn't tell from the drawing, it was just the way the shadow was, because it kind of looked like it was all shadowed in and there was a little bit of light from the back, or that it was dark and it had some sort of bony structure on the back of it. Like a little bit of an exoskeleton.
Just reminded me of there's another, and I believe this came up in Communion, also like a uniform appearance that would intermingle with the alien grays. There was the They were kind of like short and squat and raisiny. You know, they look like
Yeah, like
California raisins.
little troll things. I saw the movie.
Trolly, yeah.
Yeah, and they were the ones that did most of the almost like the heavy work.
Yeah, the heavy.
They were the laborers or something.
Has that ever been? Now you know, of course you know.
And there was also something, I believe, in Communion, I remember, where allegedly they told Whitley Strieber that what you see, this isn't us.
Really?
Yeah, implying that this is a form for you to see. It's not our form. Which, now that I say that out loud, it reminds me again of the whole mental avatar thing into a biological body. But it's these things that are going on right now. It's unbelievable, and nobody's really talking about this. You have to look this information up in order to read it. It should be on
it's
every news station.
It's definitely not on the front page of anything. But it is now. Disclosure is starting to happen, right? Like the snowball is rolling down the hill here.
It definitely is. And you know what? I want to talk about that because I think that's highly important.
Yeah.
But we're already 30 minutes in, so let's end this episode. We're going to talk about that next week. We're definitely going to do this back to back. And then I have another thing. Tim wants to film something also about UFOs. So we're going to have a few episodes back to back. So why don't we end this right here for now and then come back and let's talk about all of this, Tom. Everything that's been coming out.
Mm-hmm. yeah, definitely. Let's do it.
All right, everyone, come back. Join us next week, same time. And this is getting a lot deeper.